Diolch yn fawr i chi gyd am eich gwahoddiad I siarad â chi heddiw. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank Helen and her colleagues in the Legal Services Board for the invitation. I will endeavour to give you a Wales perspective on the issues affecting Wales, the legal sector in Wales, and the changing face of the Wales and England jurisdiction, as we call it, as we move incrementally towards the inevitable development of a Welsh jurisdiction. And I think given the considerable challenges currently facing the legal sector, along with the people, communities and businesses they serve, I'll do my best to speak about these issues as plainly as I can. So firstly, let me first of all welcome the emphasis in this conference about diversity, about a diverse public being deserving of a strong, ethical and equally diverse profession. I won't go there further because there's been a lot of discussion about that. For many of our colleagues in the legal sector in Wales and their clients, I'm sure the same goes for many parts of England. The issue is increasingly in the legal profession about survival. Let me begin with the diversity in the legal profession. This is necessity for us. It goes to the core of our work as a Senedd, as a Welsh Parliament and as a legislature. Because if we cannot attract, retain and develop people from non-traditional backgrounds to practice law in the private, public and third sectors, then we won't be able to meet the diverse needs of the Welsh public. The legal professions should reflect the communities they serve in order to win their confidence. It is excellent this conference is hearing about ethnic minority consumers' experience of securing legal services and hearing from the Association of Disabled Lawyers, Black Barristers Association and many others. And there's so much more to do about gender as well, particularly looking at how women progress through their careers. Interesting, incidentally, that at this moment in time we're looking at how we reform the Welsh Parliament and introduced statutory gender equality. So that'll be interesting discussions, but it's, I think, an indication of the importance to reform and change of the way we do things taking place within Wales. And in Wales, a significant element of the diversity we need is actually also socio-economic. Bluntly, if the law remains the preserve of the professional classes, not only will the professions in Wales lose their confidence, lose the confidence of the public, but there will simply never be enough lawyers to serve our communities and our businesses. So this goes to the heart of all we're trying to do within the legal sector in Wales, and I should say, of course, when we talk about diversity, it is the right of Welsh people to be able to access the justice system in the language of their choice, in Welsh if they choose to. In April, we published a framework for a new Chartered Institute of Legal Executives, paralegal qualifications at Level 3, foundation stage, and Level 5, advanced stage, in partnership with Silex and the Law Society's Wales office. And the aim of these new pathways of careers into law is to provide flexible legal service apprenticeships in Wales by opening opportunities to the growing number of people looking for a vocational route. The first intake of students have enrolled on their courses within the past couple of weeks. The new qualifications will help deliver a more diverse and, I think, socially mobile legal sector workforce that is representative of Welsh society. Retaining and developing talent is especially challenging for the sector in less affluent and more remote parts of Wales. These are areas which have the greatest deprivation and the greatest legal need and often face the highest levels of digital exclusion. And therefore, they can be the places where it is most important to have traditional high street practices or a legal service model that can fill the same needs. I just say my constituency, 30% of the population do not have access to a computer. So there are still very significant needs that people have in terms of access. So our focus is to persuade talented people to pursue legal careers in their locality. And in that vein, we welcome the LSB's focus on the consumer perspective. And we're very pleased to see Dr. Daniel Newman of Cardiff University appointed to the Legal Services Consumer Panel earlier this year. We are particularly concerned about vulnerable consumers, of which there are many, and it is fair to say increasing numbers. Highlighting the potential adverse impacts of justice policy proposals on more vulnerable members of society is a point that we frequently make to the Ministry of Justice. A very recent example is our response to the consultation on introducing compulsory mediation as the first stage in the Small Claims Court, in which we raised, among other issues, the potential for disparities of arms in certain cases and how they could lead to unjust outcomes. I'd like to say a few things in the time available to me about the reputation of lawyers and the judiciary and public trust, because there has been, I think, significant developments and attacks. And of course, none of us are above criticism, which at times may be warranted. And of course, criticism and challenge in that regard can be extremely constructive and helpful and put to valuable use to improve outcomes. However, any such criticism should be measured, it should be evidence, and it should be fair. So none of these, alas, apply to some of the language that is used by some members of recent UK governments when referring to lawyers. Some of the most senior members of the Johnson government told us that activist lawyers were frustrating the business of government and that lawyers helping people to exercise their rights and use all the avenues available to them was playing a system. Now, Mr. Johnson himself said the criminal justice system was being hamstrung by lefty human rights lawyers. I think this is just not just unhelpful, I think it's damaging to the legal profession. I believe it undermines our democracy and the rule of law. It also undermines the hugely important work that many lawyers do for citizens, communities and businesses across the UK. I told a conference in Llandudno last week that the basic truths of our system are so obvious they should not need repeating, that lawyers act for their clients, they represent them as best they can within the confines of the law procedural roles, but also importantly, professional ethical standards, and it is our job to do our duty. If the government doesn't like the outcome it receives under the current law, it is entitled to seek changes to the law. So attacking lawyers for doing their job is also, I think, an attack on democracy and the rights of citizens. Attacks on judges who cannot speak back are particularly dangerous, and in the aftermath of the Enemies of the People Daily Mail front page in November 2016 regarding the Gina Miller case, I issued a written statement in my capacity as Counsel General then to defend judicial independence. But following the media's attacks and the apparent disregard for the rule of law, I thought it was vital to speak up to protect the integrity of our developing judicial system in Wales, and judges generally by being clear that ministers have no role in the running and decision-making of devolved tribunals. And at the time, senior ministers in the UK government were not speaking up for those ethical standards and the role of the judiciary there. There have been other attacks on the rule of law in recent years, and I'll do all I can to demonstrate the Welsh Government's commitment to upholding the rule of law and the position of the legal sector in Welsh society. There is, though, a democratic deficit in the UK's patchwork constitutional arrangements, which is being highlighted time and time again. I see increasing recognition across all four UK nations that the current constitutional system is dysfunctional and urgently in need of major reform. So that's why in Wales we've set up the Independent Commission on the Constitutional Future of Wales, led jointly by the former Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. Rowan Williams, and Professor Laura McAllister of Cardiff University. The Commission is considering options for the reform of the UK's constitutional structures, of which Wales remains an integral part, and also options for strengthening democracy in Wales, and it is scheduled to produce an interim report by the end of 2022. Our view as a Welsh Government, as a Welsh Labour Government actually, is that the interests of Wales are best served as part of a prosperous United Kingdom. But it is a United Kingdom that is in desperate need of reform if it is to survive. The current approach of the Prime Minister and UK Government to devolved governments is fuelling public opinion towards the breakup of the United Kingdom. When a committed unionist First Minister of Wales has to state in the Senate that not only has the Prime Minister not contacted him, or the First Minister of Scotland, and that not only have interministerial meetings been cancelled or not convened when referring to the intergovernmental arrangements put in place, there is, I think, a very serious constitutional situation. I will just read out the quote that of what the statement that the First Minister had, because I think it is a very powerful statement that really goes to the core of really some of the constitutional structural problems that are taking place. First Minister of Wales, Mark Drakeford, is an incredibly rational and reasonable person. He is very cautious in the words he uses. So when he uses this terminology, in many ways it underplays the significance of the seriousness of the situation. He said, not only has there been no invitation to meet the Prime Minister, but all those carefully agreed components of the intergovernmental review, concluded by the last UK government, agreed by the Welsh Government, the Scottish Government and the Northern Ireland Executive, none of that is operating. There was to have been a meeting of what's called the FIS, the Finance Interministerial Committee. It was meant to happen in September. It was postponed by the UK Government. Rescheduled for 5th of October. It's been postponed again by the UK Government. Neither of those two committees, the Ministerial Committee and the Finance Committee, have met since the new Prime Minister took office. There were 11 groups set up at ministerial level under the review of intergovernmental relations. There had been 20 meetings of those groups between March and the start of September. Not a single one of them has met since the new Prime Minister took office. It is a collapse. It is a collapse of a set of arrangements that the last Conservative government agreed, led, and to an extent was making happen in the 6 months between March and September. We'll take whatever opportunities come our way. But the truth of the matter is that the current UK government has turned its back, not just on our economic futures, but on the future of the United Kingdom as well. I think that's an incredibly important and powerful statement. I'd like to say a few words about a couple of other things. I'd like to go on, perhaps mention a little bit about Ukraine and where that fits in. I have a personal interest. I'm second-generation Ukrainian-speaking Ukrainian with family in Ukraine on the front line at the moment, so it's something that I have a particular personal interest in. It is, to me, important that all four UK nations continue to give whatever support they can to Ukraine, including assisting with the prosecution of war crimes. And this is an area where there should be opportunities for us all to work collaboratively across the UK. And it would send a powerful message to show a united front between the four governments of the UK. So we're keen to play our part, and we stand ready to do so. So I've been speaking with legal professionals in Wales who are keen to support the Prosecutor General of Ukraine with war crimes prosecutions. I've also spoken to the Prosecutor General's office directly, and last Friday I met with Sir Howard Morrison, the former judge of the International Criminal Court, who's now serving as an independent advisor on war crimes to the Prosecutor General. And it's clear from these discussions that legal professions of Wales and England can help to bring war criminals to justice. And in particular, I know there is a need for lawyers with case management skills that can be taught to prosecutors working without an electronic case management system. The remaining few minutes I have, I'd just like to say, give you a little flavour of the Welsh Government's approach to justice in the legal sector in Wales. All we are doing is underpinning by strong collaborative working with our many partners and stakeholders in the sectors within Wales and outside Wales. And much of that collaborative working is detailed in our Delivering Justice for Wales paper, which I published in May, along with my colleague, Cabinet colleague Jane Hutt, who's the Minister for Social Justice. And I think it's an important paper, and I think it has lessons not just for Wales, but for justice in England as well, about how things can be done differently, and I'd certainly recommend you to have a look at it if you get a chance. It provides a progress report on implementing the recommendations of the Commission on Justice in Wales in its report from October 2019. And the Commission, led by the former Lord Chief Justice of England and Wales, Lord Thomas of Cwmgïedd, delivered its report following, I think, the largest ever examination of justice in Wales. Secondly, Delivering Justice in Wales provides our interim response to the Law Commission's recommendations in its Devolved Tribunals in Wales report last December for reforming devolved tribunals by establishing a single, unified and coherent system. And thirdly, it provides a broader update on justice developments in Wales by highlighting what we and partners and stakeholders have achieved in recent years and our plans for making further progress. Finally, we have set out a consultation paper, some proposed core components of a vision for a devolved justice system in Wales. So anyone who would be interested in contributing views towards that, we'd be more than happy to accept them. We're keen to engage with the legal profession. We're keen to engage with all those who engage in community law, communities in a broadest sense. And I think that also includes views from outside Wales. So we're proud to be somewhere that new ideas can be piloted. from the Pathfinder project in North Wales Family Court to the residential women's centre we hope to open in place of a women's prison in South Wales. And we're keen to engage with you and the sector to continue making its voice heard on these areas, because the law and lawyers are at the heart of what we do. So we're not expecting a big bang, giving major changes, but we are looking at very much an incremental, a gradual process as a product of engagement with people, and hence those conversations and those inputs are really important. Before I finish, can I just reassure everyone that when we talk about these issues, about devolution of justice, it doesn't mean change for the sake of it. We do not see the need for a separate legal qualifications in Wales and England. We do not see separate regulators for the legal sector in Wales. We have no interest whatsoever in making it more difficult to practice law, whether it be in Wales and England, Welsh lawyers in England, English lawyers in Wales, etc. What we want is a legal sector in Wales to thrive, and we want to continue supporting it. But it is also important to be clear that the reality is that Wales and England increasingly have different laws. Since 2007, 74 items of primary legislation for Wales have been passed by the National Assembly for Wales, and then, of course, the Senedd, the Welsh Parliament as it is now. And, of course, divergence is increasing at an even quicker rate through the huge volumes of legislation, not just legislation passed in Wales, but, of course, legislation passed in England that does not apply in Wales. So the future inevitably means change, and I hope you'll see that there are major opportunities, I think, in terms of how the profession works, the opportunities for reform, to do things differently, to make access to justice far greater than it is at the moment, but also to value the role that lawyers play and legal advisors play within Welsh society and within our communities. So I hope that's a rather fast and brief summary of events. Thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you very much to Mick for that. And I'd like to open the floor to any questions anyone may have. Yes, the lady in the second row. Would you like to wait for the microphone for a second? Thank you.
It was just a comment on Welsh language. My brother-in-law was a doctor. He could go and work in Cardiff. My sister was a primary school teacher. She couldn't work because she didn't speak Welsh.
That's not true.
Oh, well, that's what she told me. Sorry.
Not true. There are no restrictions. I mean, obviously, if you're teaching in a Welsh medium school, you need to speak Welsh. But the majority of schools are not Welsh medium schools, and there aren't restrictions. We did have to deal with this, and it's the same problem, I think, there's in terms of perceptions that some lawyers have. We had one stage, recruitment of doctors, where the message coming back was, oh, well, I'd love to work in Wales, but I don't speak Welsh. You don't have to speak Welsh to do it. Of course we have a Welsh language, we protect that, we nurture that, we want to give people rights and access and so on. But it's not restrictive, and it's the same with law. I mean, I've heard the same thing said within law. So we're not looking at barriers, creation of barriers. We don't see that as being any mutual benefit either to the English system or to the Welsh system. You know, there are mutual interests. But it is a respect for culture, respect for languages, and it's about opportunities, and it's about rights. But no one would be prevented from teaching in Wales because they don't speak Welsh unless it happens to be a Welsh medium school.
The other thing I wanted to thank you for was highlighting the lack of access to like laptops and digital stuff. But to point out that even in London, there are people who do not have access, and we've heard people saying that it should be available in person. But even where you do have access, we live in an area that has very poor Wi-Fi, etc., for mobile phones. We seem to call it the. Oh, sorry, wasn't not working.
Triangle.
Yeah, we call it the Bermuda Triangle. So, it's not just Wales that has. But thank you for highlighting.
Yeah, digital access is really important. It is the future, but we are not there yet. We have many people who don't have that, many people who don't necessarily have the skills. That's an issue. It is the same issue, though, in terms of the access to courts. Half the courts in Wales have been closed. We have people now who actually just cannot, with any realistic sense, get to court, even there's summons. We have people now who actually will say, I'll wait till I get summoned, then the police will bring me to court because I can't afford to go to court. We have people who are giving evidence in family matters, serious matters, and they're doing it on their mobile phone. Now, those are really significant concerns that you have in terms of accessibility. So accessibility is important, but it must not be the case that we disregard the fact that there are still significant elements of, particularly some of our most vulnerable in society, who don't have that access, and we have to make sure the two go together at the same time.